This is Sporting Life.
Well, welcome along to the Sporting Life Racing Podcast. David Orr, joined by David Johnson, Billy Nash, Graham Cunningham and Ed Chamberlain. A few news stories and action to react to. Look ahead to some of the racing at Newmarket this week. It's not, as I claimed, Future Champions weekend. That's another weekend. But there's some Group 1 two-year-old action that we can get our teeth stuck into. But before then, other bits and bobs. And Billy, I'll start with you. City of Troy works at Southwell last week. A bigger crowd than they could dream of getting for a race fixture. Loads of media fallout, ourselves included. We were represented down there. Why do you think it seems to matter so much, the City of Troy Breeders' Cup Classic bid? And why is it getting so much cut through?
One of the reasons is, for the first time in a long time, we have a genuine contender in the Breeders' Cup Classic coming from Europe. Obviously, there are a couple of horses have won it in the past, but you have to go back a while. And Aidan has tried to win it. He's run numerous horses in it in the past, but you kind of have to go back to probably maybe even Henry the Navigator when it was on a synthetic surface. The time Ravens Pass beat him, Giants Causeway before that he's had a really genuine, proper top horse having a cut at this race, because normally his best horses will run in the Breeders' Cup Turf or drop back to the mile or whatever. So this is the first time in a long time that one of his real aces is taking on this race. And like I said, he goes there with what seems to be a live chance. I'm no expert on North American form, but people who are seem to think that this isn't a vintage crop in the States. So if there is going to be a European winner, this could well be the year for it.
GC, there's been all sorts of analysis of the action on the dirt, how he travelled, how he picked up in it. I mean, you're never going to learn anything from the Southwell Gallop, other than he's definitely got a following, this horse, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, all. I think there's a clear, at least in part, performative element to this, because we're dealing with one of the final chapters in the potential making of a legend here. And if he goes and wins the Classic, that day will go down in folklore as, one of the key springboards. So from the branded gilets that all the team wore to the crowd in attendance, and don't underrate that, many of those lads and lasses there last week wouldn't have had a chance to see City of Troy before, nor will they get him a chance to see him in person after. 5,000 watching on live stream, Aidan's Purple Pros afterwards, the predictable bookie press releases about City of Troy sending tremors through the trading room floor. It's all part of the show, and I've told you before, I'm here for it 100%. The American stalls, which he could jump out of 7 days a week at home if they wanted to, but it's all part of the show. And if he goes and does the business in Del Mar, then we'll all look back on that day at Southwell and say, yeah, wasn't that a stroke of genius?
And Ed, it struck me, you've been spending the week trying to sell the sport. You've been doing broadcast training, trying to engage with younger race fans. What we could do with poster boys in the sport, couldn't we? Horses that we can hitch our wagon to.
Yeah, and this was good. This was very good. And there was a lot of hyperbole about it. I don't necessarily think 750 people being there means City of Troy has necessarily got the cut through to the mainstream, but it was still good. It was still really good. And the thing I loved about it most, Audie, was that Weatherby's did that 4-page race card for it, which I thought was a tremendous effort. And they left space. And how thankful would Ryan Moore have been to the space that was left for autographs? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And David, we've touched upon what the task he faces is. He's Timeform's top-rated international editor, Jake Price, going in. Is it a 130p? There is a chance something could happen in America that would take him to be Aidan's best of all time on Timeform rating. I think it's Hawkwing at the minute on 136.
Yeah, that's right. 136 is the bar that he's got to reach. Whether he could manage to attain that new level on a dirt surface for the first time, I'd be a little bit surprised. I think if he could win at all, it'd be a huge achievement for him. But I think he is just a horse that has definitely captured the public's imagination from obviously looking so good so often as a juvenile. Those quotes from Connections about he's our Frankel, and then the rebuild job after the 2000 Guineas. And I think it's just one of those things that, this is one of the great things about horses. They can do this. We saw it as well at the weekend with Not So Sleepy. They just, they got a way of managing to break through. And okay, it's not necessarily a case of making the breakthrough to the wider public, like Ed was saying, but in terms of, racing people really being able to enjoy the sport, so often it really is the horses that are the important part that tell the story.
And GC, no horses tell stories more in recent times in Constitution Hill, on and off the racecourse. Now, we've had the owners' days. These always seem to be a good do, these. Never get invited, but these trainers, owners' open days, there's many a news line comes out of the one. And the one that Nicky said, 7 Barrows at the weekend, was that where Lucia finished in this year's champion hurdle means Constitution Hill would have been back home in his box eating his tea by the time State Man crossed the line.
Absolutely great stuff. We can only fend off these jumping news lines for so long, but this is a worthwhile one. Was it Nicky Henderson's Owners' Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, a safe space, surrounded by the 7 Barrows faithful, maybe a snifter or 3 consumed, and to come out with a quote like that, it takes a special kind of confidence to come out with that sort of quote when most of the horses you sent to this year's Cheltenham Festival ran like they had the legs tied together. And bear in mind, the champion hurdle was a massive sit sprint, which enabled Lucia to finish much closer to Statesman and Irish Point, was he second, than the form book suggested she might. So it sets it up nicely, because you wouldn't be human if you weren't Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott or the jockeys to think, aye, all right, let's see when we come back. You've had a troubled season. I think you've had a wind operation. You might not be quite the horse you used to be. So we'll see about that quote if and when we meet again next March. So it sets things up nicely. It stirs the pot. But as I said, it takes a special kind of confidence to come out with a quote like that. And this is one of the reasons why, chaps, I'm still working all the back channels vigorously to make sure Cheltenham do not erect a statue of Nicky Henderson.
And I can confirm, as of recording time, there is no statue in place at Cheltenham. So.
It is the type of quote that, isn't it? You put in the dressing room, isn't it? It's one of them.
They call it bulletin board material in America.
Yeah, my favourite quote, and I'm pretty sure it was Henderson the other day, said that he hopes Constitution Hill will mop up next year. Now, does that mean we're going to see him more than twice?
But people say to me, I haven't seen you doing anything about this statue thing. And I keep saying to you, Dave, and the rest of you, do you see a statue yet?
Yeah, you made it very clear. It does make me wonder why they invite media to these own home days. Because you are talking to your own team, aren't you? You're giving these rebel-rousing speeches. Safe space. Then 2 minutes later, there's 4 stories top of the Racing Post with various lines from the safe space. A line on Silvestre de Sousa, David, 24-day ban for his ride in the gym crack on Big Mojo under the whip rules. They don't get the headlines they once did, but they're still there, these whip rules, aren't they? The stories are still, the bans are still being clocked up in certain circumstances.
They are, yeah. 16 days off the top, and then I think there's 8 days suspended. So like you say, 24 in total. And I think it's as part of his totting up offences, isn't it? And I think one of the issues is it's basically like it's the 5th breach, but it's not just in terms of one type of breach. It's been done in one instance for going above the permitted level, another time for not giving his mount time to respond, and then on another occasion for using the whip in the incorrect place. So, it does sound like it's a pretty stiff penalty, but the other side of that is, it sounds to me like de Sousa isn't doing enough to ensure that he's aware of what the rules are and making sure that he's keeping the right side of them. Because, okay, it's very easy to go above the permitted strikes in the heat of the moment in the race, but the other offences suggests that he's not taking the same kind of care that you would hope that he would, given what the punishments potentially are. Sad
but true. A few numbers on that. As David said, 5th breach in 6 months, 6th totting up ban in 12 years. It amounts to hundreds of days. He's been wearing out a hole in the inquiry room carpet. But as a general thing, I do want to make this point. I think this is one of relatively few success stories for the BHA. The figures up to April 24 haven't got more recent numbers, but I suspect this patterns continued. Pro riders, flat and jumps evened out, offend with the whip roughly 1 in 200 rides. Apprentices, roughly 1 in 100. Amateurs and international visiting riders, 1 in every 40. So overall, that pro ratio, 1 offence in every 200 rides, give or take, is a pretty encouraging trend, I think.
Absolutely. Interesting stats there. David, just going to come back to you for a line that was in the Racing Post. Warren Greatrex, who we've seen winners on the flat, was interviewed about the expansion potentially into that area. And he made the point that he worries, not necessarily in his lifetime, but the long-term future of jumps racing, that in many ways a switch to the flat is helping future-proof the business.
Yeah, like you say, the article sort of starts out as an interview with a real sort of upbeat look that Warren Greatrex branching out, and he has made a real good start with his 2-year-olds, hasn't he? I think all the horses he's bought were breeze up buys in the spring, and he's had 5 winners from 34 runners, another 10 placed. But it was whilst going through the article that, like you said, it's some of those quotes, and one of them that I picked out, and he says, "I could see there being no jump racing one day." And I just sort of think we need to listen to something like that and think, well, is he right? And I can see completely where he's coming from. And I mean, as jump racing fans, we know and accept that some horses will die, but we're prepared to accept it because they get so much general top-class care on a day-to-day basis. But we do know that flat racing is safer than jump racing. And we see with the affordability checks and other things like where the government are getting involved. And it's possible that one day deciding the future of jumps is taken out of racing's hands. And I think if I was one of the hundreds or thousands of people that are completely dependent on jump racing in a similar way to what Warren Greatrex was, it probably is a good idea to start thinking, well, should we be doing other things to make sure that if the curtain call does come down quicker than what we'd hope, we're in a position to deal with it?
I don't get this argument. It's not welfare concerns that have made Warren Greatrex's number of winners over jumps dip appreciably in recent years. So surely it's more a business decision than fears about welfare that have prompted this decision. Am I off the mark with that?
No, I don't think he's saying it's the welfare issue with regards why he wants to switch to flat racing. I think it's more the concern that jump racing might not necessarily have a huge, great long-term future, and that he can run a more successful, better business by having more flat horses in the yard rather than just reliant on jumpers.
Well, Alan King's making that move gradually, isn't he? And of course, the good Dr. Newland with Jamie Insold has made a big move to the flat as well. So it's an ongoing trend.
I think, Audie, there's 2 things to remember in this. One, jump racing remains far more popular than flat racing. I mean, that's a fact, which is a positive. And also, I think we've learned, and we're doing much better at it. We're not kicking our heels in and doing nothing when it comes to welfare, messaging, and so on and so forth. And a little bit like that analogy that we can't afford to be like the circus, which stood still and has virtually disappeared, while zoos have adapted and remain popular. And likewise in business, an example would be W.H. Smith, I suppose, that used to be old school on the high street, has adapted airports online and so on. What was the John? Was it John Menzies, the opposition?
He was.
Disappeared. Didn't move with the times. Disappeared. And I think we're getting much better with our jump racing at moving with the times, because we can't afford to dig our heels in, because it will always be a threat. But I remain more positive.
I do. I think we have a 2-tier system. We have 5 or 6 trainers, UK and Ireland, who saddle well over 1,000 winners between them, and they've got a lot of owners who are prepared to pay fortunes for horses, and they dominate the Premier League. And then we have many hundreds of trainers and jockeys who toil away at the coalface, and they're not going anywhere because they adore being involved in jump racing, and they're prepared to race for really not much money just to be involved. And I think it's unless the welfare situation really intensifies, I think it's a recipe for more of the same. A real Premier League dominated by the usual suspects, and hundreds of others who graft away for relatively little money.
Let's look back on some of last weekend's action. Billy, a win for one of our team. Richard Fahey's Powerful Glory won the Mill Reef Stakes at Newby on ground that had most of the 4-5 came out. It was hard work. They said he didn't like it. Richard thinks he's a Group 1 horse for next year. Would you share those hopes or dreams?
Say at this stage, but he ran to a big figure. He got a time form rating of 106p, which was backed up by a really good time figure in what you say were pretty testing conditions. So you can't knock the horse. He's 2 from 2. He looked good on the day, and there's lots to like about him. It's just the Mill Reef as a race has a pretty checkered history when it comes to throwing up real top performers. I'd say probably Harry Angel in 2016. You have to go back as far as him to find a real genuine top notcher that came out of the race. That would be the one major concern. But Perfect Glory looks the part, and like I said, 2 from 2, hard to knock him.
And you can look back already at Ribchester being 2015, the year before Harry Angel. So I'd read a lot into it as far as Fahey is concerned. And he said at the York preview, this is much his best 2-year-old. Made no secret of the fact. But what does this mean for you, Dave Ord? I'm looking at you because we've read the Sporting Life. You purchased this horse.
Cobalt.
Should the bloodstock agents in Newmarket this week, how concerned should they be? Are you going to book one, for example, Lordy?
I've got the phone open to Richard at Tatzel's Island now. There's nothing that's tickled me fancy so far there, Billy, I'm afraid to say. It looks like book one for my next purchase. Sheikh Rashid, if you are listening, he has watched the Powerful Glory videos. Sheikh Rashid, like the series. So there you go. Episode 4 coming soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Those agents should be worried. They should be worried. All is here.
It's an easy game, genuinely. Very easy game. You're looking for throat, how they breathe, how they move, bit of scope, job's done. So available, again, just look on LinkedIn and contactable via there if required. Any owners
certain trainers, though, who you really trust when they are adamant they've got a real good one. And Fahey's one of those for me. And Isheen Orr also coming out and saying, there's nothing we have to gallop with at home. Is he a sprinter, gents? I think he probably is more of a 6-7 furlong horse than a strong miler, isn't he?
I thought you bought him as a miler, didn't you?
Oh, right.
Richard's O'Sheen said he'd get further after the Mill Reef. I think
he then brought back to the July Cup, yeah?
Yeah, dropped back to the July Agile style.
I was in the same hotel as I was in the Troon Hotel with Fahey, and I exclaimed my displeasure at seeing him there on Friday evening, thinking this was a very good 2-year-old in the Mill Reef. And as he said, me being at Newbury won't make him run any faster. So I think he enjoyed it up in air.
Did I detect Richard Fahey on Twitter he didn't know he was an Arsenal fan.
He's a gooner,
would work at the weekend. Then I think, was he bagging the ref or he was having a go at something about the game at the weekend?
There's plenty to get stuck into, to be fair, wasn't there, in that particular encounter? David, 2-year-old's Cosmic Year. Different type, spectacular debut visually for Juddmonte at Sandown under O'Sheen Murphy and Harry Charlton. And Graham North was very taken as well. And Watch and Learn said he certainly looks to be up there with the best 2-year-olds we've seen this season.
Yeah, it was an eye-catching performance. He got a time form rating of 97 with the large piece, so caught the eye of reporter David Cleary as well. And the time itself doesn't look anything special, but he does get a big sectional upgrade on that. And I guess the one slightly surprising thing is that when you see a horse come out and put up a performance like that is that there aren't any big race entries, because you always find it hard to believe that a horse that's capable of winning by 6.5 lengths on debut on good ground hasn't been burning up the gallops at home. So maybe he's just one of those that doesn't do a great deal at home and has caught them out with a real pleasant surprise. But pedigree wise, he looks like he should go a long way. He's a half brother to Time Test, or is he a full brother? Half brother to Time Test, who obviously was a real good horse for Roger Charlton, and out of Passage of Time, who was a Group 1 winner for Sir Henry Cecil as well. So everything to look forward to, and it'd just be interesting to see whether they bother to up him in grade later on this year, or whether they bring him back for a trial in the spring. But yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to, hopefully.
We should keep John Quill in mind, shouldn't we? In the same colours. He was impressive at Sandown the other week and seemed to blow it completely at Donny.
I think they came back too soon with him, didn't they? That was the verdict a few days later, that he was a bit flat. Billy, this year, we're going to move on soon to some Group 1, Group 2 races at Newmarket for the 2-year-olds, but this could be a year where it's a later developing maiden winner. I mean, it happened this year as well, didn't it? It turns out to be the Guineas horse. I think the bar's not spectacularly high among the established 2-year-old stars so far in 2024.
Definitely not. I think the likes of Whistle Jacket are knocking around the top of the 2-year-old ratings this year. Good 2-year-olds, but nothing spectacular. So yeah, we're still waiting for something to produce a bit of fireworks. We've been saying all year that the fillies probably look a little bit better than the colts at this stage, and that's probably still the case, to be honest. So yeah, you're right. There's no real superstar 2-year-old this year so far. But look, there's still time for one to emerge, because we still have a couple of big races between now and the end of the season.
They're about 6 minutes away on this podcast, this very podcast as well. Ed, let's talk about the rise of Karl Burke. I mean, what a fantastic period this is for his career. I mean, it's probably not his greatest achievement, a 1, 2, 3 in the Air Golf Cup, but it's a fantastic one.
I'd say it's got to be right up there, hasn't it? I think that's an unbelievable achievement. I went into Saturday a little bit sceptical. I was thinking, why is today on ITV1? You know, no offence to Air Gold Cup and the racing at Newbury, but if you were a casual viewer, sports fan watching on Saturday, you had, what did you have? You had Franny Norton, which was great telly, doing what he did at Chester. You had Not So Sleepy winning at Newbury at the age of 12, which was heartwarming, magnificent performance. You had the Craig Lister filly winning at Ayr, which again, brilliant for the underdog. And then you had Karl Burke with a 1, 2, 3 in one of the most competitive sprints of the whole year. I think that's incredible. I really do. I think that's up there with any training feat, really. It's different when you do a Michael Dickinson in a race like the Gold Cup, because it's much more elite, isn't it? To do it in a race, 25 sprinters, it's bonkers. I think it's absolutely bonkers. Unbelievable, really. How many times has Silky Wilkie come second? I mean, it must be umpteen times now. But honestly, I thought it was a great achievement, and it's a shame he wasn't there.
Yeah, he rerouted from Newbury. It was a non-runner, wasn't it? The horse he was going to see.
Yeah.
I think
it was off as well to the £2 Tricast punter that carried off about 34 grand.
No, it was 39 for £1, I think, and he had it.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he got a big end of 80 grand. And 30 years to the day since Karl Burke's first recorded big winner was Daring Destiny in the Gold Cup. And he needs 2 more for his, I think it's his 5th consecutive ton. He's won 12 group races this year, 12, with a classic winner, Fallen Angel, 2 Royal Ascot winners. So his progress in the last few years has been terrific.
I've just counted up Silky Wilkie, Audie. Silky Wilkie has come second 17 times in his career.
Really? Is that right?
17 times.
And the first 3 were drawn, Karl's 3 were drawn 2019 and 24, and pretty much ran in a straight line. If you try to join the far side group from high draws, it never works.
GC, you made your Look on Sunday debut on Sunday, obviously. Alpha Kaleni was the interview with Craig Lister. He was on. It's some story, this, isn't it? Her progress.
Yeah, thanks for all the messages re that Sunday appearance. It is from 70 to 101 rating, 6 from 6 in 2024. Great story for the trainer, Paul Hannigan, Simon Mapletoft, and is it a Good Racing Company? And I don't know what anyone else thinks. I'm pretty confident, with all due respect to the Burke trio, she would have won the Air Gold Cup, I think. The way she tanked along in that near side group and then set a seal on it. She was at the line just over a length slower than Lethal Levi in the Air Gold Cup. But bear in mind, if she'd been in the Air Gold Cup, she'd have been carrying appreciably less weight. And just the way she dominated the Silver Cup. I think there's a case, because she would, she had the handicap mark to get in the Air Gold Cup. She wouldn't have been out of the ratings. I think there's a case for making certain races, and we'll touch on this again when we mention Cheltenham in an upcoming podcast later today. But there's a case for making certain sprint handicaps win and you're in for races like the Gold Cup. The York one, for example, that she won, the Great St. Wilfrid, etc., etc. I think there are a case for making certain races in the lead up from a PR point of view, and from the perspective of getting the most progressive horses into the biggest races. Strong case for having won and you're in races. And I did sense a little bit of frustration from Craig Lister. He's not a guy I know very well, but I think he wished that this year would have been his chance to go for gold.
David, another Northern sprinter really going places. Star of Lady M, spectacular at York, and much too good for them at Ayr up in grade as well. Graham North, DJ, says Abbey, roll the dice and have a tilt at the Abbey with her. What say you?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised when I read that, but I guess when you think about what kind of performance it takes to win an Abbey, and it is the kind of tools that she does have, isn't it? She's a very fast filly. She just jumps and runs as hard as she can for as long as she can. And, we have seen tactics like that well and truly rewarded in the Prix de l'Abbé before. But I think when you look at that race at Ayr on Friday, it was very much a case of conditions playing to her strengths, wasn't it? They had the wind behind, and she's just very difficult to catch. A time for rating of 109p, backed up by the time figure. I mean, they absolutely smashed the course record there, didn't they? And I know it's obviously 5.5 furlongs. They don't race over it very often, but I guess she's the kind of filly that you don't really have anything to lose with by now, do you? So why not have a tilt at it? But I'd be surprised if she proves much better than what she showed on Friday, because she had so much in her favour in terms of her ideal conditions.
She ran.
What an incredibly durable mare, Ardy. I was looking up her race record this morning. She has run every month since April 2023. So I reckon that's 18 months in a row she's after running. She's won 7 times in that 11 wins overall. I mean, hats off to all connections, because they've done a marvellous job with her. I mean, she's the type of mare that everybody involved in racing would love to own.
Yeah, she signed off a 3-year-old campaign on New Year's Eve with her 18th run of 2023, and she's up to 16 already this season with 3 and a bit months to go. So what a fantastic story.
Yeah, 2 wonderful stories there. 2 wonderful stories as well. Retirements with Fanny Norton GC we touched on. We said we have a winner or 2. We used that with 3 at Chester, and some scenes as well as Golden 60, the official retirement in Hong Kong on Sunday morning as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit biased, of course, but he has been one of the most exciting flat horses to watch for the last 4 and a bit years. The way he, accelerates is a spectacular thing. A horse and a story with real charisma about it. And another little point. Hong Kong punters are not a particularly sentimental bunch, but the fan element was definitely on show there. And those retirement ceremonies, they have value. We talked about the value, and it's ceremonial in a way, of the City of Troy workout. But those retirement ceremonies, anything that brings the public, close to the heroes, are a really good thing. And I think it's the type of thing we could tap into now and again here. The type of horse who's already been retired by Champions Day, etc. Maybe that would be a good day to bring 1 or 2 of the retirees out before racing. Not easy, especially when you have the Anglo-Irish angle, but if the cap fits, it's well worth wearing it in circumstances like this.
That might be the next time we see Constitution Hill.
And rightly so.
Right, let's time to look forward. And it's Newmarket, 3 days meeting. You're ITV for 2 days. Do you like the Roller Mile Autumn fixtures?
Yeah, it's different.
And convincingly.
It's different. I mean, the last couple of weeks, we've been to the bedlam that was Donny with the 24,000 people, whatever it was, on Ledger Day. Then last Saturday at Ayr, it's one giant Scottish party. And then 2 days at Newmarket is very much one for the connoisseur, and it's quiet, it's autumnal, it's generally very cold. There's a lot of rain around, particularly on Friday. It's more looking at people getting close to the horses in the pre-parade, but the 2-year-old races look really good, Audie. Really good. The race I was really looking forward to, I've been making a bit of a fuss of it, was going to be the Cheveley Park, but as we feared, Fairy Godmother obviously did have a setback. Hence, we haven't heard or seen of her since Ascot, which is a shame. And the Cheveley Park doesn't look quite as good as it promised to be a couple of weeks ago.
Billy, it's still a very strong Irish challenge, as you would expect. Market has got Babouche as favourite over Lake Victoria. Is the market right?
I would think so, yeah. I'm a big fan of Babouche, and Babouche has done something that Lake Victoria hasn't. They're both Group 1 winners, but Babouche has done it against the boys. She's beat, obviously, Whistlejacket in the Phoenix, and we saw him come out and win the Prix afterwards. So Lake Victoria, very different type of filly, and I think Ed touched on it there. I don't think she'd be running in this race if Fairy Godmother was on the go. Obviously, she went and won the Mile there. She's by Frankel. There's plenty of speed on the dam side of her pedigree, but if you look at her racing order, you would think she's more likely to go up to a mile than back to 6. Now, Aidan tells us she's very fast, so he knows more about it than we do. But certainly looking at her in the mile there, she only got on top in the last 50, 100 yards there. She'll definitely stay a mile next year. Babouche is also bred to stay a mile, but she looks really quick. She's done all her racing over 6 furlongs. She was very impressive in the Phoenix. She's just, I've heard her described as push button, and she just seems very straightforward. She relaxes. She has a great turn of foot. And the one concern would be if it rained too much, would that blunt her speed? But I think she is the best filly in the race. I think she'll be very hard to beat.
David, can you see anything outside the big two making an impact in this?
No, I think we're going to talk about the middle park in a bit, and I think that might potentially be a little bit more open. But the standards that are set by the first two here do look pretty high, and I think you're going to have to rely on both of them underperforming to see something else coming out on top.
Yeah, and I think the market between the big two, Babouche and Lake Victoria, will swing. I think Billy might agree on this, depending on how much rain they have. If it's a real strong test of stamina, Lake Victoria would shorten in price, and I think Babouche would ease.
Ed, does the middle park float your boat anymore? We've got Whistle Jacket. He's in at an even money favourite as we record this.
Royal Lodge does more than the middle park, actually.
We'll get to the Royal Lodge. Don't you worry. I'm not.
Yeah. I think the Royal Lodge was the most interesting, arguably, of the two. Whistle Jacket will likely start pretty short, won't he? About an even money chance, and he's probably the 2-year-old in the race, if that makes any sense. And there are other interesting horses in the race. If Ides of March runs, Shadow of Light came out the other day, didn't he? More likely to run here. Though there is plenty of rain around. I don't know what the ground's going to be like at Newmarket. It might be similar to what it would have been the other day. But Whistle Jacket will take some beating, won't he?
Yeah.
Billy, there's an argument, Billy, that Ides of March isn't far behind him. Do you see that?
Totally agree with that argument, yeah. I think Ryan Moore has a bit of a decision to make here, to be honest, if the two of them run. There's only a couple of pounds between them on time form ratings. Whistle Jacket obviously is a Group 1 winner, hard to get off a Group 1 winner, and he has proven form on soft ground. He made his debut on heavy at the Curragh, where he finished second at the start of the season. He won a listed race on soft ground, so he has that in his locker. Ides of March is totally unproven. He's done all his racing in midsummer on good or good to firm ground, but he's a really progressive horse, and he is a big tank of a horse. He's an out-and-out sprinter, I would say. His form isn't quite as good as Whistle Jacket's yet, but he is getting there. He's improving fast, so I wouldn't be hugely surprised if Ryan Moore rode him rather than Whistle Jacket. But I suppose the market tells us that Whistle Jacket probably is the one he will ride.
Yeah, I think he's following the same program as Blackbeard, Whistle Jacket. Both sons of None Never. Blackbeard won the Prix Morny prior to winning the Middle Park, and Blackbeard didn't run after the Middle Park. I think we might see Whistle Jacket at Newmarket, maybe a Breeders' Cup, and just a feeling I've got. I've said it before on this podcast. I think he might be being prepared for not so much a Whistle Jacket, but a whistle stop tour off the stud, a bit like Blackbeard.
Well, entirely possible when you see what happened to Little Big Bear, his half brother. So I think you might have hit the nail on the head there, GC.
And David, it would be a much stronger race if Aidan did run both. He indicated in the week he would run both. The middle part would be so much better if they did both travel over from Ballydoyle.
Yeah, I think so. And it does, when you look at the betting, it does look like they're going to both run, and that Henri Matisse and Camille Pissarro are more likely to miss out. But I think it does look a relatively deep race. So we mentioned Shadow of Light, who has been rerouted here because the ground was too soft for him in the Mill Reef. And I think, he's going to have to be running with cut in the ground for the first time. But in terms of his pedigree, you would expect a little bit of cut to suit. He's by Luke de Vega, his Dam Winter's Moon. She ran really well in the Fillies Mile on good to soft. So I think as long as, we're not talking soft or heavy ground at Newmarket, which I don't think we will be, he looks an interesting runner. And then you've even got the Wathnan racing horse that has been supplemented, this Defence Minister, who look real quality, potential quality in 2 runs so far. Won a novice at Newmarket and looked even better at Haydock since. And the fact that they've supplemented him suggests to me that they're obviously not too concerned about what the ground is. He's by Too Darn Hot, who went with a little bit of cut himself, and some of his best horses. Karl Burke's Fallen Angel, I think, she won an Irish Guineas on soft ground. So a bit of cut in the ground wouldn't be against him. And obviously he's got a lot to find, but when he's only running 2 novices, his rating's bound to be lagging behind those O'Brien horses that have been doing what they can in group races. So I think it looks a really interesting Middle Park, and I think whatever wins is going to be potentially right at the top of the champion 2-year-old. And obviously the Dewhurst will tell us more, but yeah, I think this looks a good race.
Just a line on the Dewhurst, Billy. News breaking early in the line in the winter. The Goffs Million never seemed the most logical step for a classic colt, but it's where they were heading. The slight setback means it goes to the Dewhurst. It does seem to be going there as Aidan's best sort of 7 furlong miling 2-year-old, doesn't he?
Yeah, you would think so. You know, on what he has shown so far, he looks the real deal, Ardy. His York form looked very good, and it'll hopefully get. We'll see just how good it was at the weekend, because Wimbledon Hawkeye, the horse to finish second to him, is due to run in the Royal Lodge. Yeah, it's a pity we won't see the Lion in Winter in the Goffs Million, but obviously it makes the Goffs Million a much more competitive race now that he's not in it. EJ,
you'll be pleased about that with the Guineas points ready to mature.
Yeah, it looks a more usual route, doesn't it? It's fair to say.
Yeah, we won't be cashing out just yet, but yeah, it's in the bag really. Ed Chamberlain, what is it about this Royal Lodge that you like then?
Because it's different. It's different. The Middle Park's fine, but it's dominated by Aidan O'Brien again. The Royal Lodge has got different storylines to it, Audie. The front two of the market have got a difference about them. You've got James Owen's horse for the Gredleys that brings the Lion in Winter form into the race. Really good trainer, this guy, making a big impression. Be fantastic for him to have a winner on this stage. But likewise, Charlie Fellows with Luther, who made that huge impression with his performance at Haydock. And Charlie made no secret of the guard he'd held the horse in for some time. And again, Charlie, I think, is a really good advert for the sport. What he's done with the Henry Cecil Open weekend last weekend, very open and charismatic. And I just like it. The Royal Lodge is different. Those two at the head of the market, I think, makes it more interesting, in my opinion. And no offense to all the powerhouses and the big guns, and you've got others in the Royal Lodge as well. Do not dismiss the Jeff Smith horse, Royal Playwright, who I talked about last time when he had to make his own running. I still think he's a good horse, and he could potentially be the bet in the race at a double-figure price.
GC, you were nodding there, the Royal Playwright.
Yeah, he's a horse I like. I didn't delve too much into the Royal Lodge because I wasn't sure how many or which ones Aidan would run, but just looking back, it's 14 years this weekend when the Royal Lodge was run at Ascot round the bend, and Frankel won by about double digits, didn't he?
Some memory of that one. I don't think we'll see that in this Royal Lodge, David, but it is the most competitive of the 2-year-old races that we've talked about so far, according to the betting at least.
It is, yeah, and I guess part of the problem is that we don't know which of Aidan's 10 that are going to turn up, do we? He's got 10 of the 16 in, I think. So it's obviously not going to be quite as competitive as what the initial numbers suggest. But yeah, Wimbledon Hawkeye looked a good horse, a very good horse at York, and that the time figure of that race was extremely high, and you know we've taken a high view of that race, so hopefully we will see that form put under scrutiny here.
Billy, numerically Aidan's well represented, but in terms of quality, not quite as well as he is in the 2 races we've discussed earlier.
Hard to say, Ardy, with because a lot of these are unexposed horses. A lot of them are horses that have won maybe a maiden and are stepping up into this company. So, as you would expect, they're all really well bred. And the problem is that you have the Beresford Stakes on at the court at the same time. So pretty much all of the horses that are engaged in the Royal Lodge are also in the Beresford this weekend. So it's impossible to know which ones he's going to run. On ratings, Delacroix is just about the best of them. But he was a little bit disappointing at Leopardstown. He finished second to Green Impact in Champions Weekend, or Champions Festival as it is now. Looked a bit lazy that day. Wouldn't be surprised if they put headgear on him. If he does run, he'll probably run in one of the races. Interestingly, the Irish one that I'm kind of liked in this was Joseph's only entry. Now, again, he's also in the Beresford. The horse called Tennessee Stud, I thought was very impressive at Tipperary. And certainly a test of stamina like this will be up his street. I think it was a 9-furlong maiden he won at Tipperary. He looks like a nice horse, but again, it's impossible to know what's actually going to run here.
Billy, that's a smooth segue because you mentioned Joseph, and I have to mention this. I want to give you the chance.
It's coming.
I want to give you the chance on air to walk back this Al Riffa cannot win an arc, because things have changed since you made that comment. The bar in the field has got lower and his form has gone higher. And even with Yutakataki's 99-year-old creaking frame on top. He must have a solid place chance. So it's there's no shame in walking it back before this thing gets out of hand. Are you inclined to do that, Billy Nash?
Not GC. I'm going to stick to my guns here. You say solid place chance. I said he won't win the Arc, and I certainly stick to that.
Right.
Do you want a pod exclusive, Billy?
Yes, please, Ed. Always.
Beresford will be live on ITV on Saturday.
Excellent.
I thought you were going to reveal somebody else was riding Al Riffer for a minute then.
So did I.
The aging bones have been replaced, but very good news there.
Billy's not allowed to take that Wednesday off after the Arc when Al Riffer wins by 2, 3, 4 lengths. Clear.
The last time,
don't worry, Ed, I'll be here.
The last time GC
First time he's ever taken a position against a big Irish horse.
But I remember you making the same offer to Scoop as well, GC, before the Derby. You can walk this back.
All you can do is make the offer, Dave. That's all you can do.
Leave it on the table. Now, my bid for AWPA Glory continues this week. I corrected the number of winners Sir Michael Stout had at Royal Ascot in my tribute piece to the number that quoted. And I wrote a Cambridgeshire shortlist that was the talk of the betting jungle. If you want the 40s on Norwalk Havoc, forget it. That's long gone. And James McHenry. Oh, no, that is still available, James McHenry. Billy, the Cambridgeshire favourite. The Cambridgeshire favourite is This Song Is For You for Emmett Mullins. Go on then, sum up his chance.
Pretty typical Emmett Mullins preparation this horse has had, Ardy. He started life winning a bumper at Ballinrobe and has gradually come back onto the flat. They started him with longer trips, but yeah, he has been I won't say a revelation, but he has certainly improved for the drop back in distance this year. He ran really well at Galway 2 starts ago in the big mile handicap at Galway, and he bettered that at the Curragh last time out. 1.25 mile handicap, Colin Keane on board. He won quite nicely that day. I think he's only got something like a £4 penalty for that. Yeah. Not a big deal, but like he's only had 6 runs on the flat. He's totally unexposed. Well, relatively unexposed compared to what he's up against, and he seems to be going the right direction. So yeah, hugely competitive race, but you couldn't put anybody off him.
But surely,
Dave, that Galway race was the one that also threw up Norwalk Havoc as well, wasn't it?
Did.
I mean, a second, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very strong piece of form. I mean, why it was 40-1, GC, as I said in my hard-hitting shortlist column, it was long gone. 33s is available now, just to be very clear. David, the Gosden, do you think of the Cambridgeshire with Hallin? They've got a relatively unexposed Oswald to top of the mark in Roi de France, so you don't pronounce it, but that's the best I can do. Is he going to keep the prize at home?
It's one of them where you can always tell how old somebody is by which horse they reference. You've gone with Halling. I was going to say Pipe Dreamer.
I'll go with Lord North then.
Well, yeah, in your dreams, yeah. So, no, he obviously ticks a lot of the right boxes, doesn't he? He's a 3-year-old that's unexposed, shaped pretty well at Yarmouth. I think the winner ended up making all Roi de France ended up just sitting a little bit off him. I think, if you like that horse, Mythical Guest, a much bigger price, has only got 1.25 lengths to make up for George Margison. He could run well at a price, but there's a horse in here that I just have to back just in case, and he doesn't take much finding. It's good old Bo Pedro, who
third of the shortlist.
I keep putting him up for these kinds of races, and he keeps just showing enough to keep me interested. And he was third in the race last year off 102. He's about £9 lower now. He came back to form at Doncaster at the St Leger meeting, running on second to Johan. He could easily run well. He could easily do what he always does. But if he wins, there's no way I'm missing out. So I'm sticking with him.
You do that, David. You do that. GC, what have you got anything on your mind for the Cambridge at this stage?
I quite like your James McHenry. Just as you know, he's just a really solid, banging form, progressive handicapper. And if it gets soft, and I think it will, he won't be inconvenienced in the slightest. And dual identity, a bit like David with Bo Pedro. I've got history with him. He ran really well, winning the race on the far side 2 years ago, and he's still as good as ever. And horses that thrive in that type of 30-runner cavalry charge, they usually rock up and run another good race. But I do think the weather will have a significant way in shaping this market.
Ed, hopefully you're in t-shirt. No, you won't be, will you? It's going to be the overcoats rolled out for the first time in
It's never worn there.
2024.
I think it comes with a punting warning, doesn't it? This race, the Cambridgeshire Handicap, for two reasons. The SPs of the last 3 years. Astro King was 20-1 last year, 25-1 the year before, 40-1 3 years ago. And our treble last weekend, we had Albashir went somewhere else. We had Volterra didn't show up at all, and Emperor's Son bolted to post.
Disgraced me, didn't it? Absolutely disgraced me.
I think it's a race for specialists, isn't it? 1 mile, 1 straight at Newmarket. It's so unique. So yeah, but Pedro on the short list, Majestic, something like that, something at a big price.
Well, there you go. There's our thoughts on what is really a really, really interesting weekend of action at Newmarket. We'll find out a lot more about the 2-year-old pecking order then. Thanks to GC, to Ed, to Billy and David. And we'll be back next week when we take a look ahead to the weekend action, which of course includes Al Riffa in the anticipated victory in the Qatar Freedom Light Decree.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.